Hi there and welcome back to the Art of Business English. This week I'm flying solo and I've put together a quick episode on how to be a better listener and generate useful comments, feedback and questions during meetings or presentations. And as some of you may know, at the moment we're working on the AOBE small group coaching program. It's currently underway and we've been covering many topics and this is one that's popped up. Okay, so I developed this material for one of the participants, Esteban, and I thought that I would share it with the rest of you guys out there because it's very helpful. Okay, so today we're going to look at how to be a better listener. Okay, firstly, what I'll do is I'll share my advice with you, and then I'm going to explain how you can implement the advice, and finally, we'll be looking at all of the language and expressions that you can use. Okay, so let's not waste any time and get things started. All right, so let's start with the advice. And basically, the key to being a good listener is focusing on the speaker. Okay, so this means no distractions such as a mobile phone or your computer. We need to remove all of the noise, okay, so we can focus on what a person is saying. To be a good listener, you should follow these following tips, okay? So number one, avoid distractions and noise, okay? So give someone your undivided attention. Number two, listen to what they are saying, okay? Don't think about what you want to say next. That's a very common problem. People are always thinking about what they're going to say next and how they're going to answer. They're not really listening or focusing on what the person is saying, okay? The next one, number three, is to be an active listener. Use sounds like yeah, and this shows that you are following the speaker, okay? So this is really important on the phone or if you're in a situation where you can't really see the other person, okay? Use body language signals. For example, nod your head in agreement, make eye contact, okay, or use facial expressions to show surprise or disbelief, okay? And number five, this is very important. You need to listen for keywords, and you can use them to generate questions. Asking questions is a great way to show you're interested in someone and what they're saying. Basically, you should be asking as many questions as possible because we have the tendency to just get in there, give people our advice, and not really listen and ask more questions. Okay, so in the next part of the episode, I'm going to look at how we can put these tips into practice. So number one, you should put your mobile phone onto flight mode. Okay, that's a good thing, or do not disturb mode. Shut down your Outlook or your email client. Make sure Skype or any other messaging services are not on. This is very important if you're working online as well. I mean, it's very easy to get distracted when you are on a Skype call. So try and avoid these things, and your phone in a meeting and in a presentation can be very disruptive. So put them away. They don't really serve any purpose except for making you lose focus on the person who's talking. Okay, so number two, many people subconsciously want to help or offer their opinion. This is the most common problem people have. But you should try and listen and switch off that little voice inside your head. Try this. Try and ask 3 questions before giving your opinion. It's not easy, but you can do it. Think of yourself as being a detective and only offer your advice or your opinion after you have all of the information. Okay, you can't really give someone proper advice unless you understand the situation clearly, and the best way to do that is to ask questions. And you can use language like you could try, or you could consider, instead of more direct language, which is you should, or you need to, or you must, or you have to. Okay, number 3, start to learn and feel confident making the sounds that show that you're listening. This is even more important, as I said, on the phone when you can't see the person's face, okay? Number 4, looking someone in the eyes expresses confidence and empathy, okay? It's the least you can do. Start to be aware of your body language, and if necessary, you can practice in the mirror to see what expressions and body language you are transmitting to others. It's very important. We give off many signals with our body language and the expressions in our face that we transmit, and sometimes we're not fully aware of that body language and what really it is saying to someone. Okay, and number 5, learn the art of generating questions. You can only be effective at generating questions when we listen to the speaker, okay? I mean, it sounds crazy, no? I mean, be a better listener and you'll be a better communicator. Use the keywords or the main theme of the discussion to generate questions. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you what expressions you can be using to give some comments and feedback. So, but the first thing is to keep in mind is we need to be listening, okay? But now, once we've got through the listening stage, we may need to interrupt someone in a meeting. So let's have a look at that. Some expressions for commenting and providing feedback. All right, so basically, interrupting politely. We could use the following. John, if I could just interrupt you for a second. Here we're saying the person's name, and if you say a person's name, it's a great way of grabbing their attention. Okay, so the next one is, can I just add something? So you're actually asking a question which sounds more polite than just adding. Could I just jump in for a second? Again, you're asking, but you're actually doing. Okay, so you are interrupting, but you're sort of asking for permission first. Excuse me. That's another great way to say something. Excuse me, or sorry. Can I say? And another one, John, before you go on, I would like to add, again, when we use the person's name, it sounds much more convincing, and you stop that person. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is describing the situation or area for comment or feedback. What you need to do once you have got the attention of the audience is you need to give them some context. So you need to describe the situation. Okay, so you could start with something like, in your third point. Okay, so you're referring specifically to the third point. You could then say, when you were referring to, so you go back and you say, when you're referring to something, and you tell them what you want to talk about. Okay, you need to be specific. In yesterday's meeting, you said, again, so you're referring to the time, and then you refer to what was said. And then at the client's presentation you made last week, so you've been quite specific about when these things occurred, and also about what was said. Okay, so that's what we need to do to introduce the topic so the person knows exactly what you're talking about. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is give our opinion. Okay, so we could say something like, I thought what you said about was good or helpful. Okay, so when we say that, we can be pointing out, we can point out the obvious good things. Okay, so that's a great way to start by giving some feedback. Then we can say something like, my take on the issue is, okay, so then we give our opinion. So this is your opinion, my take is my opinion. Let me give you my perspective on this. That's another one. So let me give you my perspective on this. Next one, I completely agree with what you were saying about, and then I would also add. So it's nice to, affirm that you agree with things with people. If you do, that will show that you're listening and you've got empathy with what they're saying. And then you can go on and add what you want to give, your opinion. And then you can say, for example, the last one, my impression is. So these are some different expressions that you could use. Much better to have varied expressions as opposed to always saying, I think. Okay, so let's look at the next one, which is clarifying. So here we can say something like, sorry, John, when you said, did you mean, This is a great way of clarifying. It shows that you're listening. If you say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, or sorry, could you repeat that again? It's not very helpful. If you say, when you said this, and then you mention the thing, what you're doing is you're showing to the listener that you're actually listening into what they're saying, and you've got clear some aspects of the conversation, but not all aspects. And it's just a great way to clarify. The second thing we could say is, could you just clarify the last point? Okay, so the last point. We could change the last point for your second point or your first point. Okay, so this is also being quite specific. Now, this is going back. So here we can say, going back to what you said about, so you're referring to something that was said earlier, I understood it this way. So again, you say to the person how you felt that you understood it. And then, is that correct? So you're clarifying with them. And if it's not correct, then obviously the speaker will go on and elaborate and clarify that point. Okay. The next one is, if I understand you correctly, you are saying, and then you paraphrase what the person was saying, and you are asking here for them to clarify. Okay. So another one, and the final one, this is what I understand. Is that aligned with what you're trying to say? So this is what I understand, and then you explain what you understand. And then you ask for the clarifying at the end, which is that aligned with what you're trying to say? And here the person will go on and clarify or agree. Okay, so very clear. The next point is provoking reflection. So sometimes it's good to provoke reflection in our audience. Okay, so we could start by something like this: looking back at, and you clarify, or you explain the thing that you wanted to talk about. Is there anything you could have done differently? So here, what we're doing is we're making the person think back to what they said or what they did, and then maybe do a bit of a self-critique, okay? Here you could say, could you, and then maybe with some present perfect, could you have done this better, or could you have tried this or that? And another classic, what if you? I mean, what if is a very powerful expression. It's the same as imagine. And here we can try and invent or get people to imagine an alternative to what actually did happen. And this starts to get them in a reflective state of mind. We could use this one. What would happen if? So again, we're using conditionals here, the if conditional, which we have covered in the last episode, actually. So if you do want to review that, then I encourage you to do that. So what would happen if? Next one would be, what would it be like if? Again, so what would it be like if? And then, we're creating an alternative reality here. We're making people think about other perspectives, okay? Another one, what would need to happen to? So what would need to happen to make this a reality? So here, you're asking people for their opinion as well, to reflect on what types of scenarios or outcomes they would like or they would need for something else to happen, okay? Another one would be, what is the desired outcome? So you're challenging the person to tell you what is the desired outcome, and here they will then give you a clear picture or not of what their desired outcome is. Once you know someone's desired outcome, it's much easier to try and reach that objective. Okay, so here it's a great way to clarify and get some perspective. Okay, what is at stake? Another one here, what is at stake? So you're challenging the person to reflect and really think about what is in danger here, or what is something that could be lost or as a result of this action. So really good for reflecting here on certain scenarios. And finally, what are potential barriers and how will you handle them? So again, you're really challenging the person to think about the resistance or the barriers that may block the outcome of something based on the scenario or the situation. Okay, so that's how we can provoke reflection in a meeting or in a presentation. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the last part here, which is pulling it all together into an example. Okay, so let's have a look at an example sentence as I pull it all together now. So here it is. John, before you go on, I would like to add that if we can get cross-departmental buy-in, then we will have a stronger argument to take to the board. Secondly, when you're referring to the issues regarding delivering the project on time, I thought what you said about needing to relocate some resources to the project was helpful. And before I finish, I'm just going back to what you said about meeting our Q3 objectives. I understand it this way. You're saying they won't be met unless you can have those resources allocated within the next 2 weeks. Is that correct? Okay, so you can see how we've brought some of those elements together to give your opinion, to clarify, and really participate effectively in that meeting. So a final tip here, you need to use linking words to help you join your ideas and make your discourse flow smoothly. So what we're going to do in the final part of this episode is just quickly look at some common linking expressions. Okay, so let's have a look at those now. So let's just wrap things up then. We're going to just look at the final part of this episode, which is some common linking expressions. So firstly, what you're going to need to bring those ideas together and make them flow is some sequencing language. So some expressions we can use are in the first place, first of all, in the second place, secondly, next, then, after that, afterwards. Now just remember that you must use after that followed by a subject, verb, and object. And after is followed only by an object. So after that, we went to see a movie. But after the movie, we went to have dinner. So if you say after that or afterwards, we need to follow it by subject, verb, object. But if you just say after, you must follow it with an object. Now, in the third place, then, next, after that, afterwards. And finally, in the end, lastly, last of all, and in conclusion, to sum up. Okay, so those are some expressions for sequencing. We can also add, so if we want to add some language, we can say furthermore, moreover, in addition to, or in addition to this, and besides. Now, we will not give our opinions. We should say things like personally, from my point of view, in my opinion, in my view, I believe, I feel. We should try and avoid just saying I think all the time. And previously in this episode, I've given you some other expressions for giving your opinion. Now, making contrast, we can use on the one hand and then on the other hand. However, nevertheless, and yet. Now, yet here is not aún. Yet is basically starting a sentence. So when we use yet at the beginning of a sentence, it means sin embargo. Okay, in contrast. And then we can also use although, though, even though. Okay, although, though, even though, followed by subject, verb, object. So that is aunque. All right, so those are some expressions that we can use for our linking expressions to help us flow our discourse into some nice fluid speech. And that is really it for today's session. So we've covered basically some expressions or some advice, that you can use for how to become a better listener. Then we looked at how we can put those tips into effective or actual practice or practical use of them. And then I covered some expressions that we can use for giving our opinion and providing comments and feedback. And then I brought it all together into a discourse example. And finally, we looked at some linking expressions, some common ones to help you make your speech a bit more flowy and fluid. Okay, so that's about it from me then, guys and gals. I hope you've had a good episode. I know it's been a quick one, and I'm going to put it all together into a video as well, so you can check out that on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed to The Art of Business English, then you can do so at www.theartofbusinessenglish.com/subscribe. And if you do want to get access to the transcripts, all the downloads, worksheets, free coaching calls, then please join the Art of Business English, our premium membership, which does give you access to all of these wonderful goodies. And I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you do have any comments and feedback, then please feel free to send those through. Love hearing from my audience. It's what keeps me inspired to help and serve you guys all out there. So from me, a big thank you, and I'll see you all next week for another episode of The Art of Business English. Take care. Bye for now.